For 2 weeks straight, Staff Sergeant Lena Hart couldn't seem to do anything right. Every drill ended in failure. She missed easy shots. Froze at doorways. Botched reloads so badly that the instructors stopped correcting her and simply shook their heads. Out on the obstacle course, one flashbang was enough to bring her to a full stop, rigid, eyes wide, as if the blast had pulled her somewhere else entirely. The whispers started almost immediately. Maybe she slipped into the program by accident. She's dragging her squad down on purpose. By the end of the second week, even the instructors had run out of patience. One more failure and she'd be done, washed out, dismissed, forgotten. Then, on the morning her dismissal papers were being printed, a black SUV rolled through the perimeter gate. The heat shimmered off its hood as it stopped beside the range. A tall man in navy fatigues stepped out, his movements sharp and deliberate. Commander Reed Maddox. SEAL insignia. Eyes like a rifle scope, calm, predatory, unblinking. He didn't ask to see her scores. He didn't demand a briefing. He just turned to the lead instructor and said 3 words Lena hadn't heard in years. The range went silent. No one knew what those words were. Not yet. But what came after would turn the worst performer in the class into the one soldier no one ever underestimated again. Arrival. The transport van screeched against the desert asphalt before grinding to a halt. Heat rippled above the ground like water. Staff Sergeant Lena Hart stepped down, her left leg taking the weight with a slight hitch, a limp disguised as measured control. Mid-30s. Average height. Plain fatigues. Hair pulled into a regulation bun so tight it might have been armor. Nothing about her stood out except her eyes, dark, constantly scanning, cataloging exits and sight lines without effort. Staff Sergeant Hart, reporting for Class Bravo 12. The duty sergeant at admin barely looked up. Second floor, room 214. Don't be late for briefing. Nobody here cares what you did before you got here. The barracks smelled like old sweat and disinfectant. Lena chose the corner bunk, furthest from the door, back to the wall, view of every entrance. Old habits never died. In places she'd been, sleeping in the wrong spot could get you killed. That night in the mess hall, she sat alone. Her tray was arranged with military precision, protein bar lined to the edge, drink centered perfectly. 3 tables away, 4 trainees were laughing loud enough for half the hall to hear. Lieutenant Evan Markham was their leader, handsome, confident, and just arrogant enough to believe life owed him victories. His crew matched his energy. Torres, broad-shouldered and smug, Miller, sharp-eyed with a tongue to match, and Peters, the nervous one who laughed at everything just a bit too loudly. Some of us are here because we earned it, Markham said, voice casual but pointed. Others, because someone felt sorry for them. The laughter that followed wasn't subtle. When Lena walked past, conversation stopped, replaced by smirks. Torres muttered something that made the others snicker. She didn't react. Just filed their faces away the way she would a map before combat. First failure. The rifle qualification range stretched beneath a searing sky. Targets at 200 meters shimmered in the heat haze. Should have been routine work, except Lena's first shot went wide. The reload fumbled. Magazine misaligned. Seconds bled away like an open wound. When the buzzer sounded, her target looked like it had been shot by a beginner, not a veteran with a decade of service. Hart, the instructor said, his tone clipped. You'll need to do better than that. Behind her, Markham's voice carried easily. Guess some records don't transfer after all. Peters chuckled. Torres cracked his knuckles. Miller smiled, a sharp little smile that cut deeper than words. Lena didn't answer. She just walked off the line, jaw tight. Inside the kill house. The close-quarters combat maze reeked of plywood and synthetic gunpowder. It was the kind of simulation she should have mastered years ago, shipping container hallways, low light, strobing alarms. She stacked at the door, breathed once, and entered on cue. Too slow. The cardboard hostage dropped before she could engage. Red light. Failure. Again. She gritted her teeth and moved to the next door, forcing herself faster, sharper, but her angles were off. Shots snapped past her head, simulated rounds, but her body reacted like they were real. Shoulders tensed, breath caught, eyes flickered somewhere far away. For a moment she wasn't in Nevada anymore. She was back there, where bullets didn't stop and the air smelled like burnt iron. Hart. You still with us? The instructor's voice broke the trance. She blinked, finished the run, but her score was bottom tier. Everyone saw it. Everyone whispered. In the staging area, Markham let his commentary fly. That was painful to watch. Someone's gonna get hurt if she keeps freezing like that. Maybe she should try accounting, Miller added. Or cooking, Peters snorted. Lena cleaned her weapon in silence, movements calm and measured. Then she stood, slung her rifle, and left without a word. But Master Chief Rains was watching. He had been from day one. Observation. Rains wasn't fooled by the surface failures. He'd seen too many operators over the years, people who hid skill behind silence. Lena Hart wasn't incompetent. She was contained. Her gear was arranged with surgical precision. She always sat with her back to the wall, eyes never stopped scanning. When no one was watching, her hands moved through weapon drills fluidly, perfect mechanics hidden behind a mask of mediocrity. Those weren't the habits of a rookie. Those were reflexes honed in places where mistakes killed. Rains began to wonder, was she broken, or just dormant? The breaking point. By the end of the first week, her nickname was permanent. Tourist. Every time she slowed her team down, someone muttered it just loud enough for her to hear. Then came the obstacle course, the test that broke her. She started strong. Climbed the wall. Crossed the rope. Slid under wire, fast and clean. Her time was competitive. Then the flashbang simulator went off, white light, brutal sound. Lena froze. Completely still. 10 seconds. 15. Eyes wide, chest tight, mind miles away. Move, Hart, the instructor barked. She blinked, stumbled forward, but it was too late. Bottom of the leaderboard again. That night, the whispers changed tone. Less mockery, more discomfort. PTSD, someone murmured. She's done, another said. Can't trust someone like that, Markham concluded. She's broken. Lena lay on her bunk, back to the wall, listening to every word. Her face stayed blank, but her fists clenched once, just once, before she closed her eyes. The Nevada sun hung mercilessly overhead, turning the concrete range into an oven. Dust shimmered off every surface, and the smell of cordite and sweat clung to the air. By the start of week 2, Staff Sergeant Lena Hart was officially on borrowed time. Her record was a string of red marks, her instructor's patience measured in hours. One final evaluation stood between her and a discharge stamped, unfit for duty. The others knew it. Markham and his squad made sure she knew it too. Don't choke this time, tourist, Torres called across the prep area. She's used to choking, Miller muttered. Careful, Peters added with a nervous laugh. She might forget how to shoot again. Lena said nothing. She'd learned long ago that silence unsettled men who thrived on noise. Instead, she checked her rifle, one deliberate motion at a time, magazine seated, chamber clear, optic aligned. Every movement perfect. Every movement wrong for someone broken. Master Chief Rains watched from the tower, arms crossed, jaw tight. He still couldn't decide if she was suppressing something, or if something inside her refused to wake up. Then, without warning, the entire facility froze. A black SUV rolled through the main gate, its windows tinted, engine low and steady. Even the instructors paused. Vehicles like that didn't just arrive. They appeared. It came to a stop beside the command post. Doors opened, and two figures stepped out, but only one drew every eye. A tall man in a dark blue uniform, broad-shouldered, sun-creased face, movements sharp enough to cut air. Commander Reed Maddox. His presence alone shifted the energy on the range. Soldiers straightened without thinking. Voices dropped. He wasn't the kind of man who announced himself. He was the kind of man everyone already knew. He spotted Rains immediately and walked toward him with a stride that made people clear a path. Chief Rains? Yes, sir. Commander Maddox, Naval Special Warfare. I understand you have Staff Sergeant Lena Hart in your program. Rains frowned. Yes, sir. But, she's on the list for dismissal. Consistent underperformance, possible trauma interference. Maddox raised a hand, calm and absolute. I'm not here to argue paperwork. I'm here to watch her run one last course. Sir, that's not standard protocol. Neither is she. There was no threat in his tone, no arrogance, just certainty. And Rains, for reasons he couldn't explain, nodded. Across the range, Lena had stopped moving. She was standing beside the weapon rack, cleaning cloth frozen mid-motion, eyes locked on the figure 50 meters away. Something in her posture changed, barely perceptible, but enough. The way her shoulders squared, the way her breathing slowed. Markham noticed it too. Who's the SEAL? He muttered. No idea, Miller said. But look at her, she knows him. Maybe he's here to take her home, Torres sneered. Medical discharge express. They laughed, but uneasily this time. Maddox stepped beside Rains, voice low but clear. You've seen her freeze. Seen her hesitate. Yes, sir. What if I told you she wasn't failing? Then what's she been doing for 2 weeks? Holding back. Rains stared. You expect me to believe? Give me 5 minutes on the range. One phrase. Then watch. The final evaluation. Afternoon. The heat made the air waver like liquid glass. Lena's team lined up for what everyone assumed would be her last exercise. Scenario, hostage rescue. Environment, multi-building urban complex. Time limit, 30 minutes. Ammo, training rounds. Expected outcome, failure. Maddox stood just inside the observation perimeter, hands clasped behind his back, expression unreadable. Rains stayed nearby, half curious, half tense. Lena fell into her usual place at the rear of the squad. The team leader, Markham, rolled his eyes. Try not to get lost this time, tourist. They moved. First breach, messy. Peters rushed the door and took a simulated round to the chest. You're dead, the instructor announced. Yeah, thanks to her. Peters shouted. Again. Red lights flashed. Score dropped. Rain sighed. Everything looked the same. The same failure pattern. The same hesitations. Until Commander Maddox's voice cut across the comm net, 3 quiet words that shouldn't have meant anything. Heart. Ghost knife. Execute. The switch. The change was instant, terrifyingly so. Lena's posture straightened. Shoulders dropped. Eyes sharpened into something cold and calculating. She moved forward, not cautiously but with purpose, like a machine remembering how to breathe. Her rifle came up. Pop pop. 2 rounds, perfectly centered, before the target's mechanism could finish rising. Markham froze mid-step. What the hell? She didn't answer. She was already moving, flowing through doorways, weapon transitions seamless, reloads mid-motion. Her every movement was fluid efficiency, honed violence wrapped in calm. In 10 seconds she'd cleared 3 rooms solo, calling angles, directing the team with clipped precision. They stumbled to follow. She ghosted through corridors like smoke, anticipation replacing reaction. Every corner she cleared was already predicted, every target down before the rest even saw it. To the observers, it was like watching a symphony conducted with gunfire. Maddox said nothing. Just watched, eyes steady, jaw unmoving. Rains could only whisper, "Holy hell." 10 minutes later, 10, not 30, the buzzer sounded. Mission complete. 0 casualties. Record time. The range fell silent. No one spoke. No one breathed. Markham ripped off his helmet, eyes wide. What was that? Lena safed her weapon, calm and emotionless again. What was what, Lieutenant? Every instructor knew they'd just witnessed something that didn't belong in any manual. Something that wasn't supposed to exist. Maddox walked past the stunned squad, expression unchanged. He stopped beside Rains. "Chief," he said quietly. "We need to talk about Staff Sergeant Hart's record." The debriefing room was small and windowless, 4 concrete walls, 1 steel table, 2 metal chairs, and a hum from the single fluorescent light above. The kind of room where truth was extracted one question at a time. Staff Sergeant Lena Hart sat at the table, disassembling her rifle with silent precision. Each part clicked into place with the ease of ritual. Across from her, Master Chief Rains sat stiff-backed, arms crossed. Beside him stood Commander Reed Maddox, expression unreadable. Rains finally broke the silence. "Ghost knife," he said slowly. "That's not in any manual I've read." Maddox leaned back, eyes on Lena's methodical hands. "It wouldn't be. The Ghost Knife program doesn't officially exist. Small unit black level project, deep penetration, denial zone ops, high-value extractions. Need to know only." Rains blinked. "And she was part of it?" "She was the best part of it," Maddox replied. 3 years deployed in places that don't show up on maps. No records, no headlines. 0 friendly casualties. Every mission, every target, clean. Rains turned to Lena. "So what happened? Why's someone like you stuck in remedial training?" Lena paused mid-motion. For the first time, her voice carried something fragile beneath the calm. "Last mission went bad. Close quarters breach, IED inside the structure. Caught the blast head-on. Woke up stateside while they were deciding if I was still operational." She reassembled her rifle without looking up. "The doctors said my reflexes were fine. But Ghost Knife conditioning runs deeper than reflex." Maddox nodded. "Operatives like Hart are conditioned with layered cognitive locks, psychological gates. They suppress combat reflexes until they receive an authorization code. Keeps them from slipping into operational mode during routine duty." Rains frowned. "So for 2 weeks she wasn't failing, she was locked down?" "Exactly." Maddox's tone was steady. "Without the trigger phrase, she's just a soldier with incomplete wiring. With it." He gestured toward the wall monitor, where Lena's course footage replayed in slow motion. Her movements looked almost unreal, precise, economical, unstoppable. With it, she becomes what she was built to be. Rains exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. Hell of a safety measure. Also a hell of a risk. If she'd stayed locked during a real op, she'd have died. Or worse, Maddox finished. "That's why I came." Her clearance had been flagged. The system needed a human override. Lena's tone was even, but there was an undercurrent of fatigue in it. "The conditioning isn't a switch, Chief. It's a leash. And you don't unchain something like me unless you mean to. Silence stretched. The hum of the light filled the space. Rains finally said, quietly. The brass wanted to know if you could still function in a normal unit. They wanted to know if I could still pretend to be normal, Lena corrected, a faint edge in her voice. Guess we all got our answer. Maddox stood, tucking his cap under one arm. Her files being updated. No discharge. She's not going anywhere. Rains nodded slowly, still processing what he'd seen. What happens to her now? She'll get reassigned, Maddox said. Advanced Tactical Instructor, Special Operations Training Command. She's earned the right to teach instead of bleed. Lena didn't look up. Permission to speak freely, sir. Always. Teaching isn't a demotion. It's containment. Maddox's eyes softened, just a fraction. Sometimes the best soldiers aren't meant to keep fighting, Hart. They're meant to make sure the next ones survive long enough to matter. Aftermath. By morning, her dismissal order had vanished from every system. In its place, a new line. Assignment, Advanced Tactical Instructor, SOTC Command. Status, active, reinstated. Her course record stayed pinned to the top of the board. Hostage rescue, time, 10 minutes 3 seconds, record holder. No one came close to beating it. Markham's swagger evaporated. Torres and Miller kept their distance. Peters tried, awkwardly, to apologize. We didn't know what you could do, he stammered. Most people don't, Lena said simply. That's kind of the point. But why didn't you show them sooner? Save yourself the hell? Because I wasn't authorized to, she replied. And that was that. From then on, her presence in the mess hall carried silence instead of mockery. Rains noticed Markham watching her movements during drills, trying to learn how someone could flow through a kill house like it was choreography written by instinct. By graduation week, Lena Hart stood in formation with the rest of Bravo 12, same uniform, same stance, nothing special to the untrained eye. But every instructor, every trainee who had seen the transformation, looked at her differently. They knew the truth, the quiet ones, the broken ones, the ones you overlook, those are the ones who change the outcome. When Commander Maddox left the base, he paused beside Rains. Don't try to keep her in the field, he said. Why not? We need people like her. Because people like her have already given enough. Then he was gone, the black SUV fading into the desert shimmer. That night, Lena sat alone on the range as the sun went down, the rifle across her lap. Wind carried the scent of dust and cordite. Somewhere out there were people who still thought she was broken. She smiled faintly at the thought. Better they think that, she murmured. Wolves live longer when the sheep forget their names. The desert answered only with silence.